sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little girl. But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, Chemical X. Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born! Using their ultra superpowers, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup have dedicated their lives to fighting crime and the forces of evil!
I had a mind-blowing experience the other day, and I love when this happens. I was going through the comments on my video I made about him from the Powerpuff Girls, and I came across this comment from Xander Williams, who said that for him, it was the Boogeyman episode. And this comment just completely, absolutely unlocked a deep core memory for me. I 100% had forgot about this episode until Xander brought it up. This episode is one that straight up had me captivated as a kid. This show in general is just absolutely amazing. Even as I'm planning this video, I found myself stumbling upon other episodes that I kept thinking I need to add to my list of video ideas. I personally love diving back into the show because it's one of those that I really enjoyed from like ages 4 to 8, and I haven't watched it at all since I was that age. Now, don't get me wrong, going back and watching Rugrats and SpongeBob and shows like that bring back major nostalgia for me, but those are shows that I've seen again and again, even well into my 20s. The sense of nostalgia that I get from this show is just so fresh because I'm getting to revisit all of these episodes for literally the first time in 2 decades. Not gonna lie, just saying that makes me realize how close I am to 30, and it makes me kind of sick to my stomach, but whatever. The bottom line is that the Powerpuff Girls is literally such an amazing show, and I'm so happy that I get to dive back into these episodes with you guys. That's why today, on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're looking at the Powerpuff Girls episode called Boogie Frights. But first, you know how it goes, I gotta take a sec to thank you guys so much for clicking on this video and for checking out my channel. I appreciate you being here and for being a part of my YouTube journey. As always, an extra special thanks to my subscribers. You guys are amazing. As of the time of me recording this video, I'm about 10,000 subscribers away from 100,000 subscribers total, and I can't thank you guys enough. Your support is really appreciated. I have to give an extra special shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. You guys are the literal best. Huge shout out to my 90s kids in the top tier. Your support means so much, and I can't thank you guys enough. If you haven't checked out my Patreon yet, feel free to. The link is down in the description box down below. It's a great way for you to show your support and get some cool benefits in return. Just in case you missed the announcement for it in my other video, I have some exclusive stickers that I'm giving away to my first 40 patrons who include their mailing address when signing up. It'll come with a handwritten letter from me as well. About half of them are already gone, so make sure you sign up if you want to get one of the first test runs of official Dust Till Sean merch. Thank you, with peace and love. Boogie Frights is an episode that I kind of have a special memory of from my childhood. I remember seeing this episode air multiple times when I was a kid, and I was always enamored with it. I was the kind of kid who was always fascinated by the villains and the bad guys in the show specifically, and this villain shook me to my core and was absolutely terrifying to me. But on that same note, I just couldn't look away. This episode starts out at nighttime in the city of Townsville as all the kids in town are getting ready for bed, including the Powerpuff Girls.
And I'm not ready for bed yet. Now, girls, you know we need to get plenty of sleep. It's our responsibility as superheroines to be well rested so that we'll be at peak crime-fighting performance whenever evil rears its ugly head. And, like Ben Franklin always said, early to bed, early to wake makes a lady smart, pretty, and great. Yeah, but all the fun stuff happens at night. Parties, dancing, nightclubs and stuff. Girl, it'll be awesome once we're old enough to go out after dark. Right, Bubbles?
Bubbles says that she's not excited, and Buttercup starts teasing her and accusing her of being scared of the dark and monsters under the bed.
I guess you wouldn't be afraid of the boogeyman either. Who? The creepiest, scariest, nastiest, long-fingered, pointy teeth having-this little kid getting-est monster in the world! But don't worry, he only comes out after dark.
What? Whoa!
It's the boogeyman!
What? Boogeyman? What's going on in here? Buttercup? Are you teasing your sisters again?
Buttercup is just straight up rude and calls Bubbles a baby for being scared, to which Bubbles responds by apologizing and saying that she wishes that she was brave. The professor tries to tell them being scared doesn't make you a baby. He says that bravery isn't about not being scared, it's about doing what you're afraid to do. He tucks the girls in and tells them no more monkey business.
Now that things have quieted down, we can all get some... Say, do you hear something? Some kind of crazy beat? Who could still be awake at this time of night?
Just slip in the last piece and... Jerome, let's get this party started.
We cut over to a club full of monsters where a small monster comes up on stage to introduce the one and only Master of Darkness.
The one, the only, boogeyman! Creatures of darkness, dig it! Too long have we been at the mercy of light. Night lights, street lights, hall lights with the door cracked, and deeper still, the sun. I know, but I, your boogeyman, have just completed step 1 of my grand master plan that will ensure an end to this problem once and for all.
The boogeyman tells everyone to prepare to hit the streets as he gives them a big old hype pep talk. Meanwhile, at the Townsville power plant, there's a goon awaiting the call from the boogeyman. As the phone rings, the goon bites right through the main power line and cuts the power to the entire city.
The coast is clear, come on!
A limousine pulls up and the boogeyman walks out and does this slick lean back walk as he approaches the other monsters. At that exact moment, the sun starts to rise and the bartender shouts last call as everyone starts wrapping up the party. The boogeyman tells them all to hold up and that this is part of his grand master plan.
The sun will no longer be an issue once I initiate the third and final step.
Is step 3 really all that?
Shit, it ain't no step for a stepper.
Uh-oh. What's happening at the old abandoned roller rink? He's launched some kind of missile.
It's a giant disco ball!
And it's eclipsing the sun!
The disco ball eclipsing the sun makes it so that morning can never come in Townsville, and all the monsters start to take over the city and terrify the citizens of Townsville.
I can't get any sleep! With all that racket out there. Something funky's going on downtown. I'll say, we better check it out. Yeah, it might be trouble. Wait for me!
The Powerpuff Girls come to find out that the town has been turned into a nightmare nightclub. Buttercup is just stoked about it, and she starts to dance as she convinces Bubbles to dance with her. The two are terrified by a cheetah monster that threatens them, and they start to fight.
Oh no! The girls are getting swamped!
Well, it's the Powerpuff Girls crashing my party.
The boogeyman taunts the Powerpuff Girls, saying that now that the sun has been blocked out, they're gonna make the night last forever. That gives the Powerpuff Girls the bright idea to go for the disco ball to thwart the monsters. They fly right into the sky, and immediately the boogeyman hops into his Pimpmobile limo, which pops right up and flies into orbit. As the Powerpuff Girls enter the atmosphere of the giant disco ball, they plan their attack, but the boogeyman shows up in pursuit.
Buttercup, Blossom, oh no, I can't do it alone.
Bubbles, if you can just face your fears, then I know you can find the courage to beat them.
The feisty little one. Ha! Now you're mine.
You're good to go, kid. Now blow up that disco ball so we can go back to bed.
The girls fly away victorious as the disco ball explodes and all of the monsters burn in the rays of the sun, and once again the day is literally saved thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. I have to be honest with you guys, this episode just hits me with a ton of feels as I rewatch it. I haven't seen this episode in so long, and I remember loving this one so much when I was a little kid. It would scare me to death in my early childhood, but I can't lie, the way that they drew the monsters and all of their different colors was just so appealing to the eye. The nightclub looked like a ton of fun, to be honest. I love the overall, like, 70s kind of funky vibe from the boogeyman and the monsters. The dance club that they were in, the roller rink that the boogeyman's disco ball was launched from. It was a nice touch for the atmosphere behind the character like the boogeyman and the context that they portrayed him here. Taking it from the top, right at the beginning, we see that sequence where the Powerpuff Girls are getting ready to sleep and Buttercup is just being an absolute jerk to Bubbles and calling her a scaredy cat. It was so rude, and poor Bubbles didn't deserve that. It's okay for her to be scared, just like the professor said. He even admitted that he was scared when he heard them scream. It made me so sad to see Bubbles apologizing for being scared and wishing that she was brave. Buttercup just pouring salt in the wound wasn't helping in the slightest. At the point where we see the professor barge in, Blossom immediately starts narking on Buttercup and telling the professor in detail exactly what Buttercup had done to bully Bubbles. Which, like, yes, was the right thing to do. You should always, and I mean always, stand up for someone being bullied and advocate for them. However, in this specific instance, you could tell that the professor seemed just a little bit fed up with Blossom being such a tattletale. Or at least I should say that he was annoyed at somebody here. Maybe he was annoyed at Buttercup for being a little instigator, but who knows, I guess. He did have a pretty disappointed tone on when he said that Buttercup was being an instigator, so I guess his annoyance could have been directed at her. Now, we gotta take a moment to talk about that Prince of Darkness, the Boogeyman. This guy absolutely frightened me to my core when I was a child. His deep, gravelly voice and his big, gnarly, jagged horns were just haunting. I will say though, his purple color is actually pretty sick. I gotta say, like, the suit, the hat, the cane, the walk, the limousine, the Boogeyman is basically, like, just a pimp. His style is pretty sick though, not gonna lie. I do have to admit, he is also very charismatic, I will give him that much. I do have to point out, during that sequence where the Powerpuff Girls wake up to the sound of the monsters partying, I was really not surprised when they came up to the scene and Buttercup was straight up cheering on the monsters. That was just so fitting for her personality. She would definitely be the one to cheer on the monsters under her bed instead of being scared like everyone else. On that note though, we have to admit, like, how crazy is it that this whole nightclub exists underneath the Powerpuff Girls' bed? It's really interesting because, like, there's technically a whole dark world underneath their bed. Technically, it is also under every other kid's bed as well, taking into account how their portal system seemed to work, considering that we saw all the monsters from the nightclub coming through kids' beds all over Townsville. I do have to point out, the point where the Boogeyman's Pimpmobile points 90 degrees straight up in the air and then just blasts off into space, that was just completely out of pocket in so many ways, but it was just hilarious in my opinion. I did not see that coming and it had me dying. My brain sees that and just tries to rationalize how that works. Like, how is that car gonna go from all fours to just straight up on top of its trunk vertical? It's clearly not going to work, but my brain got a good laugh trying to figure that one out. I also really appreciated all of the Star Wars references in this episode. Of course, the entire sequence of them flying around the giant disco ball and having to shoot laser eyes at a specific spot being a reference to the Death Star in the original Star Wars, with Bubbles being Luke Skywalker, complete with Obi-Wan Professor Utonium basically telling her to use the Force. We also see Blossom and Buttercup shoot down the Boogeyman's Pimpmobile just like Han Solo did to Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. They even included the "You're good to go, kid, now blow up that disco ball" quote to wrap up the reference rather nicely. If there's anything else that I have to say about this show, it's that it wasn't afraid to get scary. While working on this episode, I kept stumbling upon other episodes that I remember terrifying me when I was younger, and it definitely made me have the realization that the writers of the show really weren't afraid to go there 110% sometimes. I'm really tempted to go back and check out some more of these terrifying episodes in the future, or maybe more wholesome episodes of this show. All in all, the Powerpuff Girls is a fantastic cartoon, and I really enjoy diving into these Cartoon Network cartoons because it brings me back to a nice time in my life that I have very few memories of because I was very, very young. But the portions that I do remember from back then are precious memories that I will always hold deep in my heart. But what do you think? Do you remember this episode? Did it scare you when you were a kid? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Extra special thanks to all of my patrons, and especially those in the 90s kids tier. You guys rock. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to drop a like and give praise to the YouTube algorithm in hopes that it pushes this video to everyone else. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Sugar.